Welcome to the Wonder of Stuff podcast, covering science, engineering and technology. From atoms to Android, zirconium to zoology, we'll cover it all here. Well, hello and welcome to the Wonder of Stuff podcast, broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend, either Saturday or Sunday. Tonight is a Saturday. This is the place where you will find news, information and commentary on science, engineering and technology from the past week and beyond, and anything else that interests us from inside our little human brains. Welcome to 2015. This is the first one in 2015. My name is John Gardner, as always, and to help me out on this journey to knowledge, we have colleagues Richard Smith, hello, Ross Davidson, and for tonight only, we have a guest star, Alex Taylor. Say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Now, Alex, you're new here, but I obviously you've been watching this for weeks. And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're interested in and how we all come to know you and stuff like that?
Yeah, sure. Well, I first met all these guys working for a small development company in northeast of England. And that's where I met John and Ross. I think it's about 12 years ago now. It's quite a long time ago. And then a few years later, Richard joined us, and we've been friends ever since. And my interests mainly lie with programming. I'm a web developer. That's my job. So I basically use a lot of different web programming languages. And I've also a big avid movie buff as well. I'm really into movies and games and whatnot. So that's me in a nutshell.
Excellent. Great. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to try and keep it all small and well packaged and keep it wrapped up within the 45 minutes this time. So we're going to start. Without further ado, we'll plough on. And the first topic we've got is one for Richard. Richard suggested this, and it's about birds and how they detect storms. Would you like to elaborate, please, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, this is a quick one because basically they're psychic. And
Thank you very much. Right now, Ross.
Next.
It is a really interesting one, and it's something that's interested me for a long time. Animals that seem to have what people often refer to as additional senses, or sort of some form of precognition, which obviously is not very scientific, but animals do seem to have a sense for things, especially things that happen in nature. You know, it's often depicted in movies. There's a volcano flow coming, or an earthquake coming, or a comet about to hit. I don't know how they would have a clue about a comet about to hit, mind you, but you know, these disasters are about to occur, and then the animals all get out of the way. But yeah, this is one that's now been scientifically observed. Some songbirds, golden-tailed warblers, they were being observed in their migration grounds, and where they would normally be in the US for breeding. They suddenly got up and flew 1,000 kilometers out the way of a storm that was approaching from 900 kilometers away.
So you're saying they actually changed their behavior, their migration behavior, based on atmospheric conditions that are going on around them?
Yeah. So they were in the breeding ground, so they'd completed their migration, and they did something that was unprecedented, which was to move 1,000 kilometers away. In fact, one of them flew 1,500 kilometers away. But yeah, this was the storm that killed 35 people in the US, 80 tornadoes. So you know, it was creating significant atmospheric conditions. But yeah, they were busy studying their migration patterns, and then this happened. So just an interesting side effect of that.
So this is all when the big storms in 2013 in around South America, Tennessee, and places like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. And the bird that did the 1,500 kilometer trip went to Cuba just to get out of the way. So yeah, and the theory is that they're using infrasound to detect telltale signs of storms. So I just thought it was quite interesting, and sort of, like I said, leads into maybe some thoughts that people might have on animals that they've encountered, or stories they've encountered about animals where they've had this sort of seeming precognition.
So this is
my dog definitely has that sort of detection of a sound from a long distance away, because when I get home, Nicola's already home, my wife, and my dogs get up and start looking at the window about 30 seconds before I get home. So right at the end of the road, they must hear the car before a human could hear it. So this is
frequencies that are subhuman. So we're talking, I guess it must be sort of like 10 hertz, something like 10, 20 hertz, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
And low frequencies travel a lot better. Things like whales have the longest sort of communication, don't they? They have it's hundreds of miles they can communicate underwater with low frequency sounds.
Yeah.
The water helps though with that particular.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, yeah, travel a lot further underwater.
Yeah.
Well, that's what these warblers have been using, infrasound basically, which is the one that's below 20 hertz.
How many hours or days before the storm actually hit? Because obviously they would have fled before the storm actually started.
Yeah,
hitting.
5 or 6 days before. So as it was 900 kilometers away, 5 or 6 days before, they all moved, and then once it had shifted, they all moved back. So obviously purposeful. It's only a theory at this stage because the fact that it's just one observation so far. But that certainly looks like what was happening.
So, I mean, in all honesty, this could be happening all over the time. It's just that this is the first time that a group of scientists have actually been monitoring them for something else, as it happens, and seen this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And also difficult if it's a matter of days beforehand. You've got to be looking at it long term to work it out, because you could see lots of birds moving away days before. You don't connect that with the storm. Whereas if it was like in the films where it was like literally 5 minutes before the storm, you'd be like, oh yeah, we saw the birds.
Well, this is a mating ritual. This is their annual, migration to the breeding ground, set up a nest, which is what they were doing at the time, breed, lay eggs, bring up the offspring there. So it would have been interesting if the storm had occurred a few weeks later when they'd actually nested. But still, for all the males and females that are highly driven by their instincts to go to this ground and breed where they always breed, to suddenly, up stock and just go somewhere else for a while and then come back, it seems fairly purposeful.
So they did come back to where they were going to nest as normal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because we down where I live there's a pond. It's like a wildlife pond, and it's been there for all my life. I remember it's been there when I was little, and I used to go out for walks with my granddad around that area, and it's had a load of all sorts of water birds in that area. But over the last couple of years, there's been Canada geese that have been. I thought they were stopping off mid-migration, but this year, and they've been here for a couple of weeks, and then they've left, and we've not seen them again until next year. But this year, they've actually been there for most of the time, and I'm just wondering if there was something else elsewhere that's been affecting their migration patterns, and that's why they've.
Well, global warming's the obvious one. I mean, that's affecting bird migrations on a big scale, on an unprecedented scale, in ways that are directly obvious. In that, it stays warmer for longer, so therefore we don't need to move as early. That's happening, but also in more subtle ways because birds are part of a food chain that is also affected by global warming, so in more subtle ways.
I guess in that case as well, it could be because people are actually feeding them. That is one of the simplest ways. They've got a very easy way of getting food, so they don't have to. It's less likely that they want to move away.
Well, you wouldn't expect that would. That their instincts are so strong. I don't know. I'm not a bird expert, but the instinct is to migrate at those times of year because of what's coming, not what's happening at the moment. So you wouldn't expect that if they were just being more well fed. They normally migrate regardless of that, don't they? Because have to go at that time, otherwise they miss the window. So they don't know that do you know what I mean? They're not doing it based on taking stock of food supply, and they're just doing it purely on instinct, aren't they? That they feel as though this time of year we have to go.
It's ingrained in there. You kind of don't have a choice in that matter, you would think. But maybe they do. Maybe
because global warming. The theory is that that's sort of throwing them off, because obviously they're using, indicators from the environment that are static normally over this period of time. They wouldn't change in a few decades.
Yeah. And also, I guess in our area this year it's been particularly mild. So when they'd be looking for local indicators from the flora and fauna to say, right, it's getting time when we should be going, chaps. But those indicators haven't been there. I mean, we've got flowers in our garden. We've still got roses that are flowering, and this is January the 3rd. So things are confused.
But just to tie off the bird one, these golden warblers. Basically, biologists haven't been looking at infrasound to this depth in birds before, because it's been assumed that it wasn't a significant way in which they navigated. There's been studies done in pigeons, of course, but yeah, basically that they're realising now that perhaps infrasound is plays a very important part in the way birds navigate. At least these birds.
Just on the subject of infrasound and stuff like that, I'm just thinking, how people are doing energy companies are doing this fracking now. Is that something that causes sort of low rumblings? Could that affect is that something that's taken into account for this sort of thing, if the thing infrasound?
I guess so, because it's quite big in America as well, isn't it?
Yeah, people wouldn't complain because they won't hear it.
There's definitely been artificial sounds that have interfered in the way that you suggested. I'm sure there was something on QI about migration of whales or something like that, where sounds of industrial activity were throwing them off. So
yeah. Be interesting to see if there's a similar thing with migratory birds, that sort of thing.
Well, very interesting. But obviously, that's if that's an area that they haven't really explored before. First thing is, I wonder why, because it would seem to me that there's been lots of anecdotal, information about for a long time about how animals hear things, not just birds, but like you would just give the example of your dog. So I'm interested to know why nobody's picked up a research topic on that before. But yeah, no, very interesting.
I think animals generally were not really, what I alluded to in the introduction, that basically animals seem to have these mysterious senses, and they're not mysterious because sort of voodoo pushers and peddlers are making a living out of that. That's part of it, but also that science doesn't have the answers yet. Have you heard about these dogs that detect fits before people have them?
Yeah.
Big thing now in America, and dogs and cats that can smell cancer. This isn't pseudoscience. This is really being observed, and it's important to science to find out what they're using to detect these things. Maybe we can, if dogs can detect cancer, isn't that a great? If you can put that in a test that you can do at home, and rather than having to breed the dog, it would be amazing. So.
Absolutely.
No. Is there any science behind about cows lying down when it's going to rain? Is that being researched?
No, they just get tired.
No, that's
or someone's tipped them.
I remember Grandad saying that one. People are adamant about that, but it's a misconception. Basically, there's no correlation between them doing that and the weather change. I mean, obviously, once it starts pissing down, they do move. They do lie down.
Preferably under a tree, because it's wet. Right. Okay. Well, that's probably a good point to wrap that one up. Certainly an interesting topic, and something that we can investigate further on and see if there's anything comes of that particular study, but also of any other studies to do with other animals and infrasound. Right. So the next one I think on the list is one of mine actually, and this is something that's very deep and close to my heart. But unfortunately not close to my head, It's baldness, but just to differentiate from standard generic alopecia, which can happen for a number of reasons. This is the good old bog standard male pattern baldness. Yes, obviously, Ross, and possibly you, Alex, as well.
Yeah.
Perchance.
This is back to.
Obviously, Richard's sitting there with a full head of hair.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's luxuriant. Anyway, so the reason why I wanted to put a bit of a preamble on, there's a genuine story at the end of this, but I wanted to put a bit of a preamble on at the start because it, like I said, it's as a 43-year-old man talking about baldness, you're thinking, well, there's no real story there. But from my point of view, I have been bald for longer in my life than I haven't been bald. So I started when I was about 16 going bald, and by the time I was sort of 19, 20, I was pretty much completely bald. So there doesn't seem to have been, and again I was talking to Richard about this earlier on in the week, and there doesn't seem to have been a huge amount of consistent research done on male pattern baldness, because all of the things that I've seen in the past have all come from accidents. They've all been researching something else, and it's like, oh, we've come up with such and such. I mean, when I was started going bald when I was 16, this was in the 80s. It's a huge psychological issue for somebody who's starting to go out with girls and starting to have groups of friends and go out in nightclubs and stuff like that. Obviously not at 16. I was never doing that in 16. But it's affected me considerably psychologically for a good few years. It just affects your confidence and everything. So when this all started, I was looking to see around if there was genuinely anything out there that could in fact help with the baldness. And there seemed to be two things that two chemical, let's just say, medications, for want of a better word, that might had a chance of it working. The first one was something called Alopecia, which was a pill, a prescribed pill, but I wasn't going to go down that route. So the other one was minoxidil, and this was quite of some sort of a wonder drug at the time. It was sold in chemists as Regain over in the UK. And the idea was that you rubbed it on your scalp day and night, every day and night for an entire year, and only then there was a 30 to 40% chance of it actually working. Now, I did this for an entire year. It costs, this is the thing, I guess you could have probably got it over the counter, but I was doing this all surreptitiously without my parents knowing and stuff. So I was buying these receptacles full of this Regain stuff, and it's bloody expensive. It's like it was something like 25 quid, and that's back in mid 80s. So it obviously cost us a lot over the time. So from then on, I was genuinely looking for research into this issue, and not for me now, because at 43 I couldn't care less. But for other people at 16 who are prematurely going bald, it really does affect them. And this article came up just a couple of weeks ago, and it was again minoxidil, that drug that I was telling you about. That was a byproduct of something else. So they found that hair follicles were stimulated, but they were trying to do research into blood flow and high blood pressure. That was a side effect. This one here is another side effect. It was it's been the experiments have been done by the Spanish National Center for Cancer Research, and they're starting to do stem cell research on something entirely different. And now, unfortunately, it doesn't tell you what they were actually trying to find, but what they found when they were testing on mice was that there's a specific white blood cell, and this is not the important bit, because they already knew about this white blood cell. It was called a macrophage, sorry. And this is the same white blood cell that actually involved in the healing process. So if you've got a wound, these are the immune cells which are traditionally involved in this healing process. But they also found that if you activate this white blood cell, that it appeared to stimulate hair growth in the area when it was activated. So, like I say, it was carried out in mice, but they are actually quite confident that they can actually reproduce this in humans now. You know, that needs to be said, but it's all to do with the fact that if this the stem cell is to be activated, if the hair follicles on the skin needs to be non-inflamed. So what they do is they give them an anti-inflammatory drug, and that stimulates the hair growth. And when they stop giving the anti-inflammatory drug, the hair growth stops. So that is the real story here, and they reckon that if they can do some more research in this area, that in about 5 or 10 years' time they could have a genuine way of stopping male pattern baldness. So what do you think of that, Ross?
Well, interesting. I mean, my first thought when you talk about this actually is I don't give a monkeys, to be honest now. I did for a while, but then as soon as I shaved my hair, I thought, looks all right. I'm happy now.
So when did you start going bald?
I basically was receding. I was quite receded as a child, if that's the right word. I was a bit of a slaphead as a child, very high brow, which caused much mirth amongst my friends. But I only started sort of receding at the sides.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know.
Mid-20s?
Probably early 20s.
Early 20s. So about the same time as me then?
It was only sort of after university that I decided to actually shave my head. I wish I'd done it a lot earlier. But what I was going to say was my first thought when you brought this up was now what I would actually like is to take some sort of pill to stop my hair growing. Because it's just a right pain having to shave it all the time.
We've said this before, and it is a pain. I mean, the reason why that I do this, every week we do this podcast, and I am a scruff, as my mother would say, and frequently does every time I go to visit her at the weekend. But, you know, it's because, quite frankly, I have to shave every day to work, and I don't want to shave at the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
It is a pain. It's an absolute pain.
Well, you can have it laser. Anyway, you can have the laser.
You could do, but I'm not going to do that. But I mean, going back to the original point, I think if there was a way to get my drink too loud. If there was a way to sort of cure it, that would be a huge thing. Because I think even though it didn't particularly bother me apart from childish jibes at school, it didn't affect me that much, but I imagine it does affect a lot of people in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean that's the issue. I mean, if they have, there are lots of things that you can get on the NHS that if you prove that it's having a psychological effect on you, you can get various operations done, and which on the face of it seem cosmetic, but if you can prove that they are affecting you and the way you live your life, then you can do this. If this it becomes a reality, I don't see any reason why this shouldn't go on the NHS. For somebody who's not for a 43-year-old baldy fat bloke, but for somebody who has got his premature baldness at 15 or 16, or not necessarily for male pattern baldness, for alopecia that might happen for something else, for some other reason.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah, totally agree.
I have to say I'm a little bit sceptical of it because two reasons really. One is mice trials often with these things don't translate into humans, so that's one word of caution. The other is I don't know. I always thought that this was like the holy grail of pharmaceutical companies, and this is what would be a multi-billion-pound industry in itself if somebody came up with it and would clearly patent it and blah blah blah. So I'm kind of skeptical that at this early of a stage that it's in the public domain. The amount of money that's meant to be behind big pharma, I would have thought that if researchers can find this out, there would be researchers owned by big pharma, and it would all be under until it was market ready.
But we've talked about this before, earlier than this week, Richard, didn't we? And this is what the first thing you said was exactly what you just said there, was like, well, surely there must be big pharmaceutical companies already way down the road on this. And to be fair, I think that since stem cell research has actually come to the foreground a lot, they have obviously made advances down that area. Although I have to say, this is the few articles that I've seen in the last 10 years about it. I can count it on one hand if there's been any articles about baldness and like this. So if they are well on the way to producing a cure, then they really are keeping it very well hidden. And that's why something like this just immediately piques my interest, because it's quite barren out there. No pun intended. Certainly barren on my head.
Just to broaden the discussion a bit, the fact that it's stem cells as well. Stem cells do seem to be a source of a lot of significant advances in sort of medical treatments. I'd say recently, but I suppose they've been talked about for quite a while now. I don't know how many of these stem cell treatments have actually made it to sort of the public domain yet, but there's been a lot of them talked about. Can't think of any other examples right at this moment, but you know.
I think it's more. I think the main jump in amount of treatments and number of pharmaceuticals and the research has actually been in the field of epigenetics. As soon as they've realised that actually the switches have a role and the gene's not just a set thing, that it's influenced by the environment, it's influenced by things that happen during the course of your life, and there's more to it than just genetics, as we understood them before. It's a bit like what quantum mechanics was to classical mechanics. It's that big of a, the field's gone up by that big of a factor. I think it's been more that, the stem cells are obviously part of that. Human stem cell research is part of that.
So I think stem cells are like the starting of a whole new area of research.
Well, yeah, I think the field of epigenetics and the use of stem cells in that field, but obviously the epigenetics is not just humans. It's it's understanding just the field of genetics basically has been massively widened. But yeah, I mean, obviously being able to use human stem cells is a massive push forward in its own right as well. It's still very rigid controlled though, isn't it? To the point where it's a bit ridiculous, especially in the US.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
How do you feel about baldness then, Alex? Are you bothered?
I'm starting to go.
We don't want to try and give you a complex here.
It's too late for that. It's too late for that. I'm definitely starting.
Complex has been arrived at.
Yeah. I think we started receiving about 5-6 years ago. I think. The thing is, though, there's no any history of it in my family.
Lovely long hair.
Indeed, yes. Remember that. Actually, John, did your parents or your dad suffer from?
Well, here's another thing that we were talking about earlier this week, Richard, and that was, although I think Richard might have... Oh, no, he's still there. Hello, Richard. We were talking about this, and I've always assumed it was down the paternal line. Richard always assumed it was down the maternal line, but I think we read something earlier this week where it can be either. Wasn't that right, Richard?
I think you might have had that in reverse. I don't know if you felt the same, but I was always told that it was the paternal line, so not what you.
Yes. No, that's what I thought. Yeah.
No. Yes, you're right. You had it right. I thought it was the maternal line, so it was mother's father. So it wouldn't be from your father, in other words. So what he's doing is not. But I think what we found was that when we looked into it, it's mostly maternal, but the maternal side matters as well. And I think this is just what we're discussing. The gene is not just, as we thought before, straightforward on-off from each parent, even in things. It just makes it more likely, rather than, it's not a straightforward, your grandfather's got it, therefore you've got it.
I think definitely, in my point of view, it's fairly obvious that the dominant gene was down my paternal. So my father was bald about the same time that I became bald. So what about your side, Alex?
Well, my dad has got a full head of hair. He's only just starting to go bald now, and he's about to push 60. My mum, exactly the same. But however, my dad's dad, he started to lose his hair quite early. I think he lost his hair when he was in his 20s, to the point where he didn't lose it completely, but it did go pretty much the same as you. So I'm starting to think that it's basically skipped a generation. That.
Yeah, I think that does infer that it's a lot more complicated than that. It's not just a gene on, gene off type thing. There's a complicated set of recessive and dominant genes that do affect it, and I guess it could even skip a generation. Although I must admit I haven't heard that in terms of baldness before. There's always been like a next the parent has always had some sway in it.
Well, it doesn't skip as such because obviously it's on the X chromosome, so therefore it's mostly paternal. Therefore, it doesn't express itself in your mother clearly.
Yeah.
Baldness. So obviously it skips in that sense. It's carried down your paternal side, but clearly your mother's not going to have male pattern baldness.
But the research is also pointing that there isn't a single gene that controls that, but there's multiple genes in various.
I think we're finding that with lots of things. That previously we assumed was a gene, and actually it's not. It's gene expression. It's epigenetics. So yeah.
Yeah. I think it's possible that we would prefer it as humans if there was a single gene. It would be much clearer and much clear cut. But
this is the human condition. We're finding this with absolutely everything. Everything we understand about the world, as far as I can tell, if you look back how we understood it 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, absolutely everything, we underestimated what was involved. We just go through this approach all the time of saying, okay, it was more complex than we thought, but it's this complex now, and it's like, it's never the case, is it? And I guess that's the nature of it, really, because you can't really say it's more complex than that, but I haven't got an explanation for it yet. You can only say as you understand it today, and then it just. But by factors of so many things where we thought we've had it nailed on with human behaviour and gene expression and disease and so many things we thought we've had it nailed on, and it's 1,000 times more complex than we originally thought.
But equally, that's exciting as well.
Yeah,
it'd be a bit boring if you could just know
down and predict it. Not for making predictions and mapping, creating a map. You can't do it because it's actually a lot more complex than you thought. It's in every field, isn't it? It seems to be in every scientific field that this has become the case. That it's across the board. This.
But it's hard. Science is hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. Anyway, I think we'll probably leave that there, and I'll continue with my comb over.
So are you not tempted at all? If something came out tomorrow, would you try? If something came on the market tomorrow and said, this will give you a full head of hair, would you give it a shot?
No, because I've been told by my good lady wife that she would then shave it all off again.
Fair enough.
So it would be a waste of money.
Is that
if nothing else?
Is that because she's seen photos of you with hair?
No. Because she happens to like bald men.
I've always liked your wife.
Now, hey, stop.
What about you?
I like bald women, and I can just never ever find one.
So what was it? What were you saying there, Alex?
I was just going to say, Ross, would you be interested? Likewise, same question to you. When it came out, hair back, so I saw you with long hair once. When you were young.
I'd do it for a laugh, and then I'd shave it all off again. I like having a shaven head, but I would do it for a laugh.
To be honest, I was looking. I found a photograph before I was doing this of me when I was 16, 17, full with big, quite long hair, and it just looks weird.
Yeah, I look weird as well. I look like I'm wearing a wig.
It just doesn't suit me.
Nah, exactly. Well, it wouldn't if you've been like you are now for the majority of your life.
Absolutely. I'm 43 now. I'm 43 tomorrow, actually. Thank you very much, everybody. But so it is entirely natural. I've known you for 15 years, Ross, and you've never known me with hair.
No, this is true.
So, anyway, I think, like I say, I think we'll leave that one there. And now I've got it. Like I said, we've got lots of sort of little things that we could discuss next. I'm anxious with the time, so I think probably what we'll do is Ross came up with like a generic topic, being that it is we've just had the Christmas period, festivities, and the first episode of the new year. This is a bit of a soothsayer one in terms of. Ross said, what is the single piece of technology that you're looking forward to most in 2015? Now, the first thing we have to get out of the way is the standard 2015 and Back to the Future, and obviously the hoverboard.
which there was a thing recently about with Tony Hawk, the skateboarder, testing one of these hoverboards.
Not Tony Hawk the comedian.
No. He was testing one of these hoverboards, and it looks terrible.
So that is actually here then, is it now?
Well, there's one that someone's working on, but it's impractical. It's not really going to work.
Is it the one that works on a particular surface and it's controls with magnets?
Yeah, I think it's magnetic, which is the first problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to run it on a metal surface.
Yeah.
So it's essentially
it looks a bit uncontrollable as well.
Yeah,
but anyway, that's not on my list.
No.
Although now you mentioned the flying car might be, but I don't think.
I'll tell you what else is on my list before we go into the actual realms of possibility. I'm still waiting for the bloody holographic projection television that they had in Star Wars Episode 3.
Yes.
And actually, if you did watch the Royal Institution Christmas lectures, you will find out that is still far away at the moment. They did they did as much as they could possibly do in terms of getting somebody projected holographically into the studio, and they had this mechanism where they had a very fine mist of water. And they were projecting them on there, and that was the best way that they could have it. So you could. It wasn't 360; it was maybe just slightly more than 180 degrees around. But that was the only way that they could actually kind of emulate a holographic. So we're still far away from a 360-degree surround holographic yet. So that ain't coming soon. So go on then, Ross. You must have thought of it. If you thought of the title, you must have one.
Yes. Well, my bit of technology I'm looking forward to this year is the Oculus Rift VR.
I knew it.
You knew it. I've mentioned this to you, Alex. And actually, I was thinking about this. Thinking there's actually not just the Oculus Rift. Oculus Rift is the one I'm expecting this year because it's sort of on its third development kit now, I think. And in March it was bought by Facebook for about $2 billion or something. So it's definitely coming out. But there's a Sony have debuted one called Project Morpheus, which is probably miles away because I haven't talked about it since they debuted it. But there's a third one, which I don't think is going to get anywhere this year, but might be further down the line, which is called Magic Leap, which actually may be something that might be able to do the sort of hologram type thing that you're talking about, John. Because Magic Leap is actually, rather than it being a couple of screens in front of you, they've actually they did something with light fields. I don't know if you heard of these light field cameras that do a thing that you can refocus photos after the fact. And they're doing a light field thing that no one really knows what it is, but they're basically projecting images directly onto your retina. So it gives you the ability to focus in 3 dimensions, exactly as if you're looking at the real world. So it's a step on from just VR, which is just stereo, to actually recreating exactly what your eye would see if you could see something in front of you. Now that's been funded by Google to the tune of about 500 million, and Qualcomm are funding it, and the Weta Workshop, who work with them on Lord of the Rings, are funding it as well. So some big players in that one. But yeah, so virtual reality is my big thing in 2015.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, I've used the Oculus Rift. I've had that Oculus Rift headset on for a good hour, and my biggest issue is not that the whole immersive environment isn't great, because it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah.
My biggest issue with it was the practicalities of it. Is because I wear glasses, I couldn't quite work out whether I should put my glasses on or take them off. And there's two like rotary buttons at the end, at the side of each camera, that is supposed to focus it in depending on how your eyesight is. Yeah. And I couldn't get it right for the whole hour. I just couldn't get it pin sharp, or as pin sharp as I could get it. And
apparently that's the most common question they've been asked. So it's something they'll have to work out for the production model. Is people either being comfortable with glasses on, or it being configurable with lenses or whatever to
I mean,
that
was the biggest thing, and that detracted it slightly away from the whole experience, because I was keep thinking it's a bit blurry. Well, I know actually it's my eyes that are a bit blurry, but how can I get this tuned in a bit better?
I think the current kits are very low resolution as well, so I don't think they're pin sharp anyway, even if you could see them clearly.
Yeah, this was it's certainly not. It certainly wasn't. It might be in 720, but I don't know. It might not even be that.
I think the latest one might be.
Yeah.
Not sure,
I think this was one iteration ago, so it might not even been that. But it's certainly impressive. And I am somebody who is normally quite hard to impress in terms of stuff like that. When I got my 3D television and put the glasses on, I was like, oh yeah, that's great, brilliant. Because
turn off again. Never.
Well, yeah, because it's like I don't want these glasses. Give me 3D television without glasses. If you can give me that, I'll happily go with the whole thing, the whole concept. I don't want to be tethered down. I don't want to be manacled into a headset.
Do you know what
That's my biggest issue.
Do you know what you two need is to immerse yourself in a virtual reality world where you don't have glasses and also you have hair.
Isn't that Second Life?
Yeah, Second Life with hair and glasses. And then just over time convince yourself that is reality. And just stay in there.
And that'll work to the point that I actually get kicked out of the house for not paying the mortgage.
You need these like rooms that they have on that film Inception, where they just go into these rooms and you just pay ahead of time for the next 20 years.
So
anyway,
have you got anything?
Who's next?
Have you got anything, Rich?
Well, that definitely. Now that I've heard some more about it, I didn't know a great deal about it, but no, mine were quite boring by comparison. Really, the only things that have really piqued my interest is just the next generation devices to work with 5G, which we've talked about a little bit already. But you know, the ones in particular that are going to link cars up so that your car's got some intelligence and data reporting in it, so that your household items are all internet linked, and all of that seems quite interesting and exciting to be able to, you know, take it a level further from these things that British Gas and people like that have got out now. You know, Hive, where you can control your heating over the internet, and where these intelligent linked systems, and your house is all like Bill Gates' house was 10 years ago, basically. But yeah, that sort of stuff. But now that I've heard about Oculus Rift, that.
So, what about you? What about you? Have you got anything there, Alex? And you can't say Oculus Rift again.
Actually, it's quite similar to Richard's in a way. What I was going to say was just what next level of or next range of smart devices, you know, are we expected to see? Because obviously we've got the smartphone, and then we've got the smart TVs, and we've got Google Glass with the smart glasses, and then we've got a smartwatch, which was announced last year. You know, Smart shoes, yeah. I mean, what's next? It's going to all, you know, interconnect. You know, what possible device could they come out with next that's going to be smart? And it's going to be related to household appliances in some way. You know,
I think there's another sea change coming up, because we're at the stage where they've gone through this gamut, this array of smart devices. You know, we're trying to wearables is obviously going to be a big thing, but the next thing is how are these devices going to be? How are they going to? Because they're now getting to the size where the phablets are coming in, and there's a tablet, and there's a phone, and there's a phablet, and the phablet are now encroaching on tablets, and phones are huge, and there's got to be a next sea change, and for that's interesting, and it might be something like Google goggles, because I mean I've used those, and unfortunately, this is my problem is I didn't use the ones that actually you can put lenses in, so. And they were dead impressive, and I could genuinely, quite happily wear those on a day-to-day basis. It does. In fact, you do seem like a fighter pilot as well, because you've got a head-up display all the time.
You just look like a bell end to everyone else.
but I mean,
the Google glasses is actually where that magic leap technology might be great, because obviously it would be projected in your eye because it's so close, and wearables.
Yeah, but there's definitely, and I don't. To be honest though, I don't think that the next step will be next year. I think it might be the year after. I think there'll be a lot of and ah, and there'll be, you'll get the Google Watch, not the Google Watch, the iPhone Watch, the iWatch, the Watchy Eye, the Apple Watch. That'll come out next year. We've already had a load of watches come out. They've all been a bit single use. It's like, well, I'm not interested in jogging and telling me what my heart rate is, and other than that, it's like it's fairly single use.
I wonder how many people who have the smart watches only use them to see the notification to get that phone out. I wonder if anyone actually reads their email on the watch or just goes, "Oh yeah, I'll read that," and then gets their phone up. Because I don't think you'd read stuff on.
The marketing ones that can accurately, apparently accurately, sort of relay your calorie expenditure and stuff like that. So, well, the fitness market obviously quite lucrative. Yeah. But I think the devices ones at a more boring level, I guess. No device in particular, but just for me, the appeal is kind of just why not have all devices relaying the data that they have and build up a matrix of data. I think that in itself as a concept is really quite interesting. So
you're thinking of your own big data.
Well, yeah, but also the community that are living having that data. To be a bit like the solar roadways. Imagine a world where everything's linked up like that, where the council knows when the bin needs to be collected by data that's getting relayed from a device that's in the bin. Functional stuff like that, rather than something exciting that we don't need but might want. All these things that we need. But people sort of make a joke of it and say, it's just connecting devices for the sake of it. I say the opposite. I say find me a device that it wouldn't be better to have some data coming. There's very few when you think about it. Why not have every single item report something if it's a low cost to do it?
But the thing is, Richard, I mean, we're in the situation where we are genuinely, every time we do something like this, every time we add something else onto the internet, connected in some way, that is the first time that somebody's done this. From the basic stuff, like it's the first time somebody's put a kettle on the internet, ever. So there's going to be a lot of superficial stuff at the end, but that you'll go away, yeah, those bits didn't work, but these genuinely did.
A kettle's a great thing to connect to the internet. Why not? I mean, what's the argument against it? Just connect it. Yeah. Would you not?
Maybe a cup of tea for work would be brilliant.
Maybe I'm just boring spreadsheet kind of guy, but like, I would like to know how many times that kettle's been on in a year. Which months is the months that are, not to the degree where I have to plot that data and work it all out myself. But if you could just find that, if you could just have a system where it's all tied in and just say, oh, how often do I use that kettle? How much percent of my energy bill is on that kettle? All that stuff would be really interesting to me. Maybe less so to other people, but...
Well, I don't have a kettle. I have a hot water boiler.
Well, I've just exchanged the word kettle for hot water boiler.
But, see, you are right, though. In the terms of the hot water boiler, is that I'd like to know, because it keeps a little reservoir of hot water always hot, and I'd like to know in terms of thermal energy that it's actually keeping it, and how much is it costing me? Is it cheaper than actually, because it seems to be cheaper than having a kettle and boiling it all the time, but I've got no real genuine 100% evidence on that. So things like that, yeah, you're right, you know. But like I say, you know, if you put everything on the internet, which is great, some of it might not work so good on the internet. It might not be queried as much. It might not have the information that anybody wants. So things will drop off because this is the first time we're doing it. Things around the edges might not. You know, we're pushing boundaries. I guess what we're saying. Every time we put something on new, it's the first time that device has been.
Literally anything. You know, your slippers. You know, how many miles you've covered in your slipper. Why not have if you can put a discrete microchip in there?
Jesus, Richard, you've got to get a life, mate.
I just mean if you could find out data about everything, right? If you could, all the time you ask yourself, right, I need to go and get a tape measure to find out how big that door frame is. If all that was just instantly reported and you had it at hand, that's the world I'm envisaging, where basically data on everything is just interactively available. You know, how long you buy a new pair of slippers? You don't need to.
But that sort. In that particular example, is that sort of information is available. It's when you buy your house; it's all there. Now, the fact it's not recorded in a place where you've got access, you know, you can retrieve the data, is, you know, it's there. It has been recorded at one point.
Less important when it's not something that's dynamically changing, I guess. So that's probably a poor example. But yeah, but also things that are stationary, having all that data poolable in one place would be good. Yeah, probably no point in putting your door frame online. I grant you that. Because you're not going to get much information out of a door frame. But the door,
how many times you walk through the door?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the door open or not? You might want to know.
Yeah.
So okay. So to sum up, for 2015, Oculus Rift possibly as well, and Internet of Things, and
slippers, online slippers,
and online slippers. And what did you say, Alex, as well? You were sort of saying Internet of Things as well, really, weren't you?
Internet of Things, smart devices, yeah.
Yeah. And hoverboards, for me, obviously, still.
If I can find a pair of internet web-enabled Wi-Fi slippers for next year, I'll buy them for Christmas, Rich.
Aren't you?
Those ones?
There's no Wi-Fi.
By the way, I found, John, just on the baldness. I've actually found a picture of you. You said you didn't have a picture of you when you had a full head of hair, and I've actually managed to find one. But also, Ross, I think I've found one that you might find.
Is this a picture of you, by any chance? Oh, yes, there we are.
This is me before I took the baldness treatment.
He's baldy slappeed.
And also when I looked identical to Ross.
And on that bombshell.
Right, we'll wrap it up for this, the very first episode of 2015, episode 6 of The Wonder of Stuff. My name has been John Gardner, and still is, and will be next week as well. And for your delectation this week, you've had Ross Davidson, Richard Smith, and Alex Taylor. Say goodbye, chaps.
Goodbye, chaps.
Okay, I just want to remind everybody, because obviously our huge amount of followers, that the Twitter handle for my Twitter handle is here. Has everybody else got their Twitter handle up?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
You know, yours isn't there anyway.
Is it not?
No.
Oh, bollocks.
Anyway, the generic email address is wonderofstuff@gmail.com. We would like to hear from you. We would like to know if you've got any questions, if you've need anything that you need desperately answering, and send it to this email address or tweet to any one of us, and we'll endeavour to get it into our next show. Anyway, that's all for me now. Goodbye, everyone.